Chapter 1. And so it came to pass that Jesus spoke to the 12, saying, I will reveal to you the mystery of mysteries, which it is my ministry to disclose. The good news that leads to eternal life. The truth that will set you free. Be not afraid when I tell you that I am not who you think I am. I am not a man of flesh and blood. In fact, I don't really exist at all. I am the fictional hero of an allegorical myth. A great silence fell upon the disciples, and Jesus added, I know it's a bit of a shock. Then Peter spoke in amazement, saying, Lord, I understand not the wisdom of your words. And Jesus replied, Listen up, and I will reveal the astonishing truth. What I am exists far beyond this world we inhabit. Jesus is a character in a story, and I am the author speaking through Jesus. I am the creator of the story, so I am everything in the story. I am this rock and that piece of wood. Whatever you do to anyone, you do to me. Look inside yourself, and I am there. Do you get it now? You're saying you're God, announced Peter. I like the sound of that. It's a bit blasphemous, but extremely impressive. And as one of your close disciples, it makes me look good. That's just theological twaddle. I'm trying to tell you something obvious about our predicament right now, declared Jesus. You and I are characters in a story being imagined by the author. We don't really exist. Look, Lord, we'll never set up the biggest religious cult in history with this no one really exists nonsense, advised Peter. Leave the philosophy to Socrates. Think of your market. Stick with the simple parables and homey homilies, the Good Samaritan, that sort of thing. But we're in a parable right now, for heaven's sake, replied Jesus, beginning to find Peter irritating as always. This is a fable, and we're symbolic figures in it. Understand and be astonished. I'm astonished, all right. I've been going along with your crazy ideas for a year now, but to be honest, I've had enough. 1 minute you're God, then you're just a man, and then you don't exist at all. Next, you're going to tell me that your water into wine stunt was a cheap conjuring trick done with mirrors. Speculating about how I pulled off my miracles is a complete waste of time, because I don't really do any miracles. I'm not sure about this new direction, Jesus, complained Peter. I like my heroes to be historical. I like my miracles to be genuine supernatural anomalies. It's not a new direction, it's just the truth, insisted Jesus. I've always referred to myself as the Son of Man, which is a Semitic idiom meaning simply a man, any man. It's a literary device to show that I'm an everyman figure in a symbolic myth. Well, you're a lot more than that to me, Lord. As far as I'm concerned, you walk on water, literally. It's a metaphor, for Christ's sake, said Jesus, unable to contain his exasperation. Peter felt the anger of the Lord and fell into penitential silence. Finally, he said sheepishly, I have no idea what you're talking about, Jesus. Sorry. Of course you don't, dear Peter, said Jesus, adopting a shepherdly tone. You represent the foolish person in this story, which is why I gave you the name Peter, meaning clod. You play the part of a clod who doesn't really get it, whilst I play the lucid mouthpiece for the wisdom of the author. That doesn't sound very fair, muttered Peter, a bit put out. Fair or unfair is irrelevant. We don't exist. We're made-up characters in a story. Well, what about Mary? Asked Peter. I suppose she's real enough. You'll look pretty sad if it turns out that you've been sleeping with an imaginary woman. Whoa, Peter, cautioned Jesus. You know there's nothing about any of that in the Jesus story, at least not in the official version. Then Mary Magdalene spoke, saying, Yes, Lord, please do tell. I suppose that I don't really exist either? And as a woman, I find that disappointingly patriarchal. And Jesus answered, You're also a character in this great story. You play the part of the foolish soul who is lost in the world, searching for love in all the wrong places. But you're redeemed by the Christ and become the wise soul who listens and understands. I didn't understand a word of that, declared Mary, because she was usually pretty honest, although she did occasionally tell a few white lies about her past. You don't understand yet, Jesus reassured her. But you will by the end of this gospel. I'm sure you're right. You're always right, conceded Mary, because she was on a bit of a guru trip with Jesus and wrongly assumed that he was infallible about everything. It's only because I am the voice of the author who has the prerogative of deciding what will turn out to be right, confessed Jesus. So let me get this straight, said Mary. You're saying that this is just a story? Bingo, exclaimed Jesus. But doesn't that make all of our adventures together completely meaningless? Asked Mary. It all felt so important when I believed it was real. Now it seems like a bit of a damp squib. The opposite is the truth, replied Jesus. Understanding that the Jesus story is a myth reveals its true significance. You see, the Jesus story is an allegory for the spiritual journey each person must make if they are to awaken to the mystical state that the original Christians called gnosis, which means knowledge. Then he added, and what's more, I am going to decode the allegorical meaning of the Jesus story and reveal the secret teachings of gnosis later in this gospel. Only this time, I'll mix the heavy stuff up with some witty banter to make it more entertaining for the masses. Wow, secret teachings, enthused Mary. Sounds fantastic. Sounds like flippant nonsense, complained Peter. This gospel will be flippant, but not just flippant, explained Jesus. Satire also has a serious side, which is what makes it the highest form of wit. After all, the real literary stars of the ancient world are satirists, such as Menippus and Lucian. Their hilarious rants about wandering miracle workers making a fortune out of the gullible are a hoot. So I've decided to do this new gospel in the same genre. Exactly how much Eucharist have you been drinking? Interrupted Peter. I'm sorry, replied Jesus. I must try to watch my tendency to indulge in obscure digressions. After all, I screwed up last time by being too cryptic. Last time? Queried Peter. There I go again, said Jesus cryptically. Peter looked as confused as Catholic theology, so the Lord comforted him, saying, It's of no importance that you understand, Peter. I'm not speaking for your benefit, but for the listener who is hearing these words. It is the listener I desire to set free, and to whom I will reveal the secrets of gnosis. Who the hell is that? Asked Peter. A good question, said Jesus, and one I hope the listener will ask themselves, because that question leads to gnosis. This gospel is going to demand that the listener engage deeply with the ideas I am going to explore. They'll need an open mind, because I'm going to suggest that they are also a character in a story. You've gone completely bonkers, concluded Peter. It's no good arguing with me. I don't really exist. Do you know your problem, Jesus? You're obsessed with your own non-existence. Just let yourself be for a moment. Then Peter put his arm around Jesus in a blokey sort of way and suggested, Curse a couple of fig trees like you used to do in the old days. You'll feel like yourself again in no time. And so it came to pass that the Lord pulled himself up straight, because normally he had a bit of a hunch like the Dalai Lama, and bellowed, You're as brainless as a rock. If I'm not careful, you'll go off and found some authoritarian church based on a complete misunderstanding of my teachings, which will inhibit humanity's spiritual evolution for nearly 2 millennia. That's why I agreed to do this gospel of the second coming and clear things up once and for all.